Okay, so first of all, welcome everyone. What my purpose for running this class and actually opening it up to the community really is so that I can get people talking about grief and really just, dispelling some of the myths, but more importantly, helping you to see your experience of grief, get familiar with it, and see how grieving is a part of the healing. So many of us are joining here for different reasons. So you may have lost a loved one, you may be grieving the loss of your health, the loss of a relationship, career, whatever it might be. I invite you to pop in the chat and share with us so that we can witness each other's grief. What is witnessing? Witnessing just means being with someone in their grief without asking it to change, without asking it to be any different than it already is, without trying to fix it or, make it any different. That's grief. So I am going to just invite you to share with us, with this community, so that we can all view and see the grief that is here. So, what are you grieving? Who are you grieving? Again, grief can be anything from the loss of a person to the loss of safety, even the loss of hopes and dreams, the loss of a relationship. You can grieve not having something you never had, right? Never had safety as a child, didn't have love as a child, didn't get tended to in the way that you needed to, deserved. The loss of what could have been. Maybe you expected to be at a different stage in your life at this point. So let's take a look together and, really let's see what grief is here. Let's invite the grief to be here. All right, so we have so much grief popping in: childhood grief, the loss of loved ones and family, health, that's a big one here, loss of connection with others. Yeah, feeling so lonely and disconnected. The loss of your daughter. I'm so sorry, Shaili. Um, Loss of mom earlier this year, loss of a relationship, loss of your parents. So many different layers of grief, different ways of us kind of connecting to grief and seeing how it looks. My cat, my health, chronic illness, losses. And it's never just one loss, right? We can come to the table saying that we've experienced a loss of someone, right? The loss of family or, a loved one, or maybe the loss of health. And yet there's losses upon losses. So we are seeing that here. It's never just one thing. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. My dad, I'm missing my dad too. Um, yeah, your children growing older, life changing, so much different losses here. And so as we're reading this, I want you to gently start to open your heart to this reality of loss that is universal. There are so many people who are in this space of loss, who are grieving. And what's beautiful is that we all share so much in common. We all share the fact that we have loss, that we've experienced a change in our life that we didn't want, didn't expect, and deserve. And so when we come together in our grief, it becomes this beautiful community, this collective experience. And that's what we're doing today. Um, the loss of health. Okay, so my mom, uh, yeah, just the loss of relationships and so much here. So I am here and I'm witnessing all of your loss, and we're witnessing together. And that's the beauty of this. Loss of self, that's a big one as well. Health and safety, loss of your sister, Heidi, not having a good relationship with family, divorce. So this feels heavy. So we can maybe already start to feel it. And so maybe a part of us is starting to resist and saying, ooh, does this feel like too much? And I want you to know that that's normal. And we're not here to throw you in the pool of grief to let you drown. Quite the opposite. We're here to start dipping our toes into the grief that's already there. If you're thinking like, oh, I don't know if I have capacity for this, I want you to know that it's there. We're not digging, we're not forcing. We are supporting ourselves and creating a safe container so that what is meant to come up will surface naturally. Again, we are not forcing at all. And so this is that invitation is to what happens when we feel safe enough to allow, when we have the permission to allow. All right, so just going through those who just joined, you can pop it in the chat and share your grief with us. There's so many beautiful expressions here, and we're just going through them to be able to witness and just reiterate the fact that your loss has meaning. It means something. It means something. It means something to you, and it means something to us as we're here together in this space. So, loss of being unsafe, loss of health, being housebound, um, the loss of your babies, parents who don't judge, empty nest, your daughter who's struggling with her own health, not having children, losing yourself in the process of caring for someone else. Lots of changes. The world, even, right? Loss of your father, loss of the collective grief of the world and what's going on. There's so much here. And so I wanted to just thank you all for sharing your grief and allowing me to witness the grief that's there. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about grief right now as we have you here in this space. We've already started to connect to our grief without forcing it. I should have introduced myself in the beginning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Vanessa Azelis. I am a mind body coach, a grief expert, a bereavement educator, and I am the CEO of the membership Haven for nervous system support and grief support. I've been a coach in the chronic illness community for uh, over 5 years at this point, and I have also supported many through grief as they've navigated chronic illness, but also as they've navigated the loss of a loved one. And so half of my entire membership is dedicated to grief. I hold this class every single month. We have a library of pre recorded classes in there. And why do I do it? Because grief is vital. It's something we all share in common, and yet not that many people talk about. And it is a part of the healing. Grieving itself is a part of the healing. And so, as I touched on earlier, what is grief? Grief is loss, right? The loss of a loved one. We have living losses like the loss of relationship, the loss of ability, health, um, finances, safety, the loss of not getting your needs met, the loss of love, hopes, dreams, connection, all of that we saw right in our chat today. And, we know that not all grief is traumatic. A lot of grief can be traumatic, but not all grief is traumatic. But all trauma has grief in it. So if you're here on a journey of healing your past trauma, whether you have chronic illness or not, all trauma has grief. Grieving is part of the processing of this trauma. And so that's why it is such a vital piece to the healing journey. And in a sense, if we think about it, if we're bypassing our grief and doing all the other stuff, we're bypassing healing in many ways. So grief itself has many components. It's not just sadness. Most people are like, oh, it's just like, we're just sad, that's grief. And while that can be part of the experience of grief, it is a fraction of it. Grief is so much more than sadness. It is felt in every single cell of our being. It's cognitive. It's in the thoughts we have, in the stories and beliefs that are even created within grief. And those shape our experiences. It's emotional. So we can experience an array of emotions in grief. And it's not so black and white, right? So we can experience multiple emotions at the same time. That includes sadness, anger, overwhelm, fear, jealousy, rage, peace, even joy, even relief. It's also physical. Grief is very physical. It lives in our bodies. So it may show up as sensations, as symptoms, as a contraction, as pain, as fatigue, as unfamiliar sensations just popping up in your body, forcing us to connect with the world beyond our five senses in a way. It leads us to the spiritual, right? So it's spiritual as well. It tests our faith. It brings us closer to God. Maybe it disconnects us completely from God and makes us rethink everything. And it helps us in some ways believe in more than what we can just see with our own eyes. Grief is also relational and social, affects the way we connect with the world, with each other. The world is forever changed when we've experienced a loss. And that affects our identity as well. Loss changes us. It brings our identity into question. It brings everything we knew into question. Who are we without them? Who are we without our abilities, our capabilities, our jobs, our health, our finances, our homes, our friendships, all of that? So there's so much in this. And I love it how David Kessler describes grief and defines it as the change we didn't want. Grief is the change we didn't want, the change we didn't expect, didn't deserve. How powerful is that? We've all experienced this change. And so if you're out there thinking, I don't know if I have grief, I can guarantee you do. So grief touches every part of us. And so we've talked a little bit about that. And today we're going to be working on all of these components, highlighting grief in the body, first and foremost. And I wanted to just describe grief in the body by Francis Weller. He writes in The Wild Edge of Sorrow, grief is felt, sensed in the viscera of our bellies, in the inner walls of our chests, in the curve of our shoulders, the heaviness in our thighs. Grief is registered in the sinews and muscles. It feels labored, as though a great weight has settled on our chest, or heaviness has entered our bones. We know grief by its felt experience. It's tangible. It's here in our sighing, in our sensing body that we encounter the terrain of sorrow. Grief rises and falls with every breath, clings to the chambers of our heart, and makes each step we take a challenge. In a dense space filled with sensation that carries our tears and our palpable aching. We cannot escape these times. We cannot outrun what is so intimately entangled in the moment to moment world. It is now that our apprenticeship with grief is most called upon. We are asked to stand alongside these difficult and painful visitations, these epiphanies of lamentation. So we're turning our attention toward grief now instead of running away from it. Because this is where healing happens. Grieving is part of the healing. It's a catalyst for change, for healing. So we befriend grief. We get to know the joy and the love, the anger, the sadness, the delight, the amazement. There's so many experiences within grief. And unless we make room to go there and sit with it, we're almost limiting ourselves from the full experience, full human experience of grief, right? Because think of it, if we are selective as to the emotions we feel, we just go for the joy, we just go for the, for laughter, for happiness, for peace, for calm, we're limiting our full experience of humanity. We have almost like a tunnel vision on life. What happens when we open our hearts to what else is there? To the grief, to sadness, to anger, to jealousy, to fear, to all of the emotions that are there. What happens is it creates a wider view of this experience, right? When we make room for grief, we make more room to experience joy, hope, peace, fun, excitement, amazement, wonder, all of that. It's all interrelated. And so now that we're closing our summer season, well, for those of you in Australia, I think you're going into spring. But as we're approaching the end of a summer, the beginning of a school year, even for some of our children or for some of us, we may be grieving the end of a season, even, right? The time off that we might have had, the people we connected to, or the things that we did, the things we didn't get to do. We might be grieving the loss of more slowness, of time with our family, maybe getting back into a routine. We may be grieving and feeling defeated because this summer was another summer where we felt like crap and we didn't get to do all the things we wanted to do. Some of us may feel overwhelmed by a routine coming, or we're reminded of the losses that we had and didn't get to experience this summer, the people who weren't there. And some of us are stuck in a sense of urgency, pressure to get back to normalcy after grief, into routine, to life. And we get stuck in this survival neurology, stuck in these stories of what the world tells us grief should look like. And today we're going to learn that it looks very different. So we are going to slow it down. We're going to allow what's there, to surrender to the emotions, the sensations, to the experience, to God, even, without trying to fix it, change it, ask it to be different, because we know that God meets us where we are at, not where we pretend to be. So today, can we make space for all of it? Can we be open to letting go of emotion, choosing to surrender to what is, choosing to be here now? And yes, it's not always comfortable. I can guarantee you it's not going to be comfortable, but that's where the transformation happens, right? That's where growth happens. Now, remember, your emotions are not here to hurt you, they're here to heal you. That same goes for the sensations that are there. They are just messengers, part of an experience. So today, I invite you together with me to come on this journey of emotion, the journey of grief, where we can explore grief and emotion together with open eyes, with an open heart, sitting with the pain, the struggle, the emotion, the sensation, seeing if we can start to let go of some of the stories we've attached, the expectations, the judgments, the pressure. We'll connect with emotion using movement, breath, sound, and mind. All exercises are very gentle, and I encourage you to just use your discretion with whatever's inside your window. You can do it laying down. Well, part of it will be sitting up and laying down. You can do it from your chair in your office, wherever you are. Just know that even by just being here in this space, by listening, a part of you is receiving a message. You're giving yourself permission to grieve, and that in itself is healing. So I invite you to get comfortable. We have two of our admin here, Lindsay and Pamela, and she can't, in either of those, either of them can help you out if you're needing help. So Lindsay and Pamela, you can do a quick wave, and if anyone needs anything, they can, yeah, pop in there with them. And yeah, just get comfortable. I'm going to put on some really soft music. I invite you to also accept this prayer and receive this prayer. If no matter what your denomination, whatever you believe in, I'm here to hold you, and I'm offering you this prayer. Father God, thank you for bringing us all together today in this space of grieving and healing. I feel honored to be guiding these beautiful souls in this journey of emotion. May you all feel God's presence, His grace, His comfort as you move through grief together, not running from it, not having to bury it anymore, knowing that God is with you in grief, with you now. May we all feel the gift of release, surrender, the gift that comes with moving with grief, and that sense of safety that that is so connected with the experience of grief, with making room for it. May we be able to anchor into the safety throughout this session so that we can come back into presence, into that sense of stability and support. I pray that God opens your eyes to see and your hearts to feel the healing that's happening here today. Amen. I'm just going to share some music with you. Can you hear it okay, Lindsay? Perfect. So we're going to start this session like we always do, with a dedication. Each session starts with a dedication to someone we lost, maybe to a part of us that we lost. You can dedicate this to a loved one. You can dedicate it to yourself. You place your hand on your heart. And just dedicate this. You can say their name out loud. I dedicate this to my dad. His name was George. I call him Baba. I also dedicate this to the part of me that was stuck in suffering and survival for so many years. Even the part of me that never felt safe to express emotion. I invite you now to take one hand on your forehead and place another behind your head. We are just making this symbolic connection of grief in the mind, in the cognitive space, in the brain. I'm going to take this hand that's behind our head and we're going to place it on our hearts, connecting your brain and your heart. Making this connection, knowing that we're connecting mind and body. And then taking your hand that's on your forehead and placing it on your belly again. Your heart connecting to the rest of your body. And finally, placing both hands on your belly. And sitting here for a moment with your breath. Without asking it to change or be different in any way. We call this a seated, grounded breath, as we're allowing breath to be there, this breath of life that's in your lungs. We're noticing the floor beneath us, or the chair, wherever you're seated. I invite you to just rock slightly side to side. Notice your sit bones. Notice that sense of stability and support. And now that we've connected to a sense of groundedness and support, we're going to create a container, an expansion, room for our grief, for the emotions here. I'm going to invite you to place your hands, just hover them over this heart space here. And we're going to breathe in, and as we breathe out, I want you to envision or imagine this part of you growing. Maybe your energy field is just growing. So we're breathing in and then out, expanding slightly. You're just going to repeat that. Breathing in, expanding slightly. We're making space for grief here. Breathing in, expanding. Expanding until you can have your heart space open for growing with grief. And when you've reached a point where your heart space is open, your back is slightly arched, just notice how it feels to have your heart open in grief. And allow your body to again come back to a comfortable position. And as we begin this journey of grief, because today is all about planting seeds and growth, we're going to envision, closing our eyes for a moment, that we find ourselves in a beautiful garden. The garden is vast and beautiful. There's a beautiful fountain with water trickling in the middle. There's this little space of soil that's waiting for you. Nothing's been planted yet. And there's this little sign sticking out of the soil. It says your name. I see mine says Vanessa's Journey of Grief. As you look down at your hands, you see that they have seeds in them. Maybe they're all the same color, or maybe they're different. Take these seeds with you and approach that garden, that soil. And one by one, do your best to plant these seeds. We are not burying our grief, we are planting. So as you plant these seeds, letting them be there, not doing anything to force or fix or rush anything, just letting those seeds be planted and trusting that healing is happening. And so now I invite us to connect to our story of grief together. What is the change that you experienced that you didn't want? The change you didn't deserve? What have you lost? Who have you lost? Allow that to come into your mind and body without judging it. Be curious as to the story you hold around this grief. Like life won't ever be good again, or it's not fair, or I'm alone and struggling. Whatever's there, don't judge it, let it be there. Notice the sensation in your body. If I were to ask you, where does grief live in your body? Maybe it's in more than one place. But I invite you to place your hand where you're feeling it rising up most. Maybe it's in your heart space. Maybe it's in your belly. Maybe it's in your head. Wherever it might be, with compassion, with respect, placing your hand in this area and gently starting to rub with care tenderly. Notice if there are any tears coming up. Whisper, you're allowed to be here. If you're noticing emotion bubbling to the surface, I can feel it already. Give it permission to flow in whatever way it feels like. Breathe into it if you can. If you can name the emotions that are here, speak them. Speak them aloud. Welcome anger, welcome sadness, welcome shame, welcome grief, welcome frustration, welcome guilt. You're allowed to be here. We're never judging our grief, because when we judge our grief, we're asking it to be different. And when we put that pressure on someone or something to be different, in a sense, we're inflicting punishment. So let's compassionately tend to this grief. It's allowed to be here. Curiously noticing how grief moves in your body, as if you're an explorer looking up at the sky and counting the stars. Notice how grief lights up in your body, the sensations, the emotion, the experience. Look at it with wonder if you can. Allowing, surrendering to. If it feels right now, holding yourself and giving yourself this hug, and gently, tenderly starting to rock back and forth, creating a sense of rhythm and movement in grief. Moving with grief. We're not running away from it. We're not trying to stop it or change its rhythm. We're moving with it. Can you say, I allow, I allow, I allow? Can you say, I accept? I accept that this sucks right now. But I also accept that this is just how it is in this moment. Acceptance doesn't mean accepting defeat, or that we're going to stay here forever. It means this is how it is right now. I don't need to fight my reality anymore. Even if this sucks, right now, I can be okay with this. When we grieve what was, we accept what is, and that's when we make room for what can be. And so now I invite you to connect with the why of grief. This is a familiar practice for those who've come to my sessions, and this can be a beautiful way to trigger the emotion to rise up within us. So placing our hands outward, we're going to connect to the why, because we all have these questions. Why did this happen? Why them? Why us? Why is it so hard? And as we do this, we're simply going to say why and just holding our hands out. Maybe you're asking God, why? Why? Do this with me. Why? Why? We don't get the answer we want most of the time, but it's just as important to ask the question, why? 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 You can get angry here too. Why? 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 Allowing it to get soft. If there are tears flowing, you can place your hands on your heart and remember that every tear that flows from your eyes are falling on those seeds that you planted. They're nourishing something within you to grow. And if you're not crying, that's okay too. The emotion and energy that is moving through you is just as healing. I'm going to invite us now to move to a more comfortable position, a fetal position, because what happens in grief is we fight it so hard that we create this conflict. We're using so much energy to fight this reality when it's asking us to bow down to grief. If you're in a chair, you're simply going to bow down and maybe curve forward. If you have access to the floor, you can just gently bow down into this fetal position. And you can do that now. Just noticing how it feels to be in this position now. Maybe moving your knees up as close as you can. Holding your knees if you can, if that feels right, or just whatever position feels supportive to you. We're bowing down to the mystery of grief. And we're connecting again. Connecting to the change we didn't want. We're releasing control. We're releasing this need to fight it, to resist it. And we're just being with what is. Can you allow the ground to hold you? Can you soften a little? Soften your jaw, soften your eyes. Allow your tongue to drop to the bottom of your mouth. Soften your neck, your shoulders, your body. Just let yourself be held here. This is loving, to let yourself be held. Connecting to that sense of stability and support that's beneath you. We're going to slowly move to our back. If you're in a chair, you can just return back to a seated position. As we find ourselves being held by the floor once more. Just noticing how it feels for your back to come into contact with what is holding you. How solid it feels, how stable it feels. That sense of stability, support, being held here. We're going to bring our attention to our heart space, this heart that has held your grief, this heart that feels the loss, this heart that's connected to your brain, to your thoughts, to your stories. And we're going to do a little bit of breathing, heart coherent breathing. We're going to connect our brains to our hearts. And we're going to do this by simply bringing our attention to this heart space here. And you can place your hand on there if you like, or leave it as is. And we're going to do a breath in for the count of 5 and a breath out for the count of 5. It may help to imagine a flower, like a lotus flower, opening gently as we breathe in and closing as you breathe out. Just going to do this for a couple minutes, breathing into your heart space, the count of 5, and breathing out for 5. Go at your pace. As you're breathing in, you're imagining this lotus flower just opening. And closing. Repeating this a few more times. In grief, our hearts can get so hardened. And I love this practice because it helps us make space and open our hearts, connect to a sense of safety, reconnecting mind and heart, bringing us back into balance, back online. And as you're continuing to breathe 5 in and 5 out, we're going to bring to mind an image, a visual, a memory of something that is elevating, something that helps you connect to a felt sense of peace or joy. It could be something as simple as watching a sunset. It could be the image of your pet or a loved one. It could be a beautiful flower or a memory of something or someone. So as you focus on that memory, that image, continue to breathe 5 in, 5 out. By bringing in this visual with your breath, you're connecting your brain and your heart. This is called coherence. It's supportive to the nervous system and deeply supportive in grief. Let's stay here for a few more breaths. And let's do that for more breath. Count of 5 in, 5 out, and when you finish that last breath, for those who are laying down, we're going to return to a fetal position, just kind of moving onto our sides slowly, gently. There's no rush. And for those in a chair, you can modify as you like. We're going to slowly and gently begin to raise up, rising up. Maybe even just imagining yourself like that seed you planted, slowly starting to grow. Poking your head through the soil, out of the darkness into the light. Rising up one vertebrae at a time. Noticing how that feels. Noticing your heart space. Do you notice that there is space in your heart? Do you notice that it's more open? Or do you notice as you connect to your story of grief once more, bring to mind the loss of health, the loss of years, the loss of this person, relationship, this change that uprooted your entire life that you didn't deserve. Allowing yourself to connect to that, allowing it to rise up into this space, into your body, however it's meant to. And together, we're going to bring our two hands together. Our wrists are touching each other. This is a symbolic expression of the armor that we put over ourselves to protect us from feeling, from hurting, from struggling. And together, we're going to break these chains. We're going to break open this barrier, this wall, this armor, because we don't need it anymore. We've built safety. We are connecting to safety even in our grief. We're letting it be here. And so together, pouring whatever's left into this armor. And we're going to breathe in together on my count. And we're going to break open. Breathing in and break open. Open up your heart space, letting yourself stay open. And if you could place your hands on your knees, I'm going to invite you to slowly start to make circles with your hips, noticing your sits bones on the chair. We're opening our hips now. We've just opened our heart, and there's just energy flowing, and it wants to move. And you can go in the opposite direction, moving with. Beautiful. And your pause at the center here. And together we're going to breathe life into us once more. We're going to take our hands out and lay them out before us. And we're going to take a deep breath. And as we breathe in, we're going to raise our hands to the sky. And as we breathe out, we're going to allow them to drop. Let's do that. Again, you can go at your pace, breathing in. And maybe this time sighing out loud. Let's do that again. Breathing in. Beautiful. And so now I invite you to get comfortable as I walk you through a guided meditation, a short visual to help you connect to this next part of your grief. As you sit here, I invite you to leave your heart open, to just be open, listening. Allow me to guide you. We are back at the garden we were at when we first started this session. The sky is blue, the sun is shining, the birds are chirping. Notice how it feels to be surrounded by the beauty of nature. flowers blooming, water trickling from the fountain. As you walk into the garden, you come closer towards the fountain. You look into the water, and you see a reflection looking back at you. You see yourself, but something's different. You are different. You made space for your grief, and something else opened up in you. Space, light, flow, grace. The reflection looking back at you is your true self. This is who has been inside you all along. Underneath the layers of repression, the layers of protection. Today you made space for your true self. As you reach your hand to touch the water, you feel a connection to this true self, and you become one. You embody true self. Take a deep breath if that feels right. Notice how it feels to embody true self. Notice how your posture may change. Imagine being in that garden, embodying true self. How your facial expression is different. Maybe how you soften. Maybe how you walk or smile. Maybe a quiet confidence. Imagine walking towards your personal garden where you thoughtfully planted the seeds of your grief. Kneel down and observe with curiosity. To your surprise, you see something happening. Slowly, with grace, your seeds are sprouting, and something is rising from the soil in front of you. What do you see? Is it a flower? If so, what type of flower would it be? Or is it a tree? Or something else growing, whatever it is? Witness it, knowing that this was nourished by your tears, your love, your compassion, by His grace. What's growing symbolizes the capacity within you for it all. It's reflecting back to you this truth that when you make room for grief, you make room for growth. Notice that you're not alone. Perhaps you feel God's presence or a loved one with you now. Feel the support at your back, as if loving hands are holding you upright. You are supported. You are held. You're not alone. Allow yourself to be supported and held in this moment. How does that feel? As you anchor into this felt sense, this feeling that you'll take with you wherever you go today. And as you leave the garden, you're going to carry a piece of what you've grown. This felt sense of safety in your body, a warmth in your heart, knowing you can return to this place at any time. Maybe as you walk away from your garden, passing by the other beautiful flowers that are growing, you bend down to pick one, to keep with you, to hold as a reminder of your grief, of your growth. You can place your hand on your heart and repeat after me in your mind or out loud. I choose to let go of the life I planned, the life I lost, so I can have the life that's waiting for me. I choose to leave my heart open to grief, to make time, to give grief the attention it desires and deserves. I choose to grieve what was, accept what is, so I can make room for what can be. And as we are making our way out of this fountain, I want you to take a glimpse back into this beautiful fountain filled with water, only this time it's filled with liquid grace. I invite you to cup your hands and put them into this fountain. And I want you to physically do this with me. Put your hands, cupping this liquid grace with the palms of your hands, filling them up and bringing them up to the sky over your head. And allow the grace to slowly pour down your body. Feel the warmth, the tingling of liquid grace pouring over you, going into every single cell of your body. Grace is flowing over you, around you, through you, in you. As you sit in grace, I'm here to remind you, you didn't just happen to wake up this morning. You woke up for a reason. Your story is still in the making. It's waiting for you to find it. I invite you to place your hands on your heart. With compassion, thank yourself for showing up today. I thank you for being here, for allowing me to witness your grief, to hold you in grief. Thank yourself. You grieve today, and this is a part of the healing. And I'm so proud of you. As you are gently waking up now, beginning to wiggle your toes and your fingers, opening your eyes, looking out at the room around you, orienting to your surroundings. We're going to come back to this space, and I would love to hear if anyone had anything to share. Pop it in the chat when you can. There's no rush. We will be moving on to the Q&A question and answer session. That's part of this class. But I'd love to hear first from you just what you experienced. Maybe there's something that you didn't expect. Maybe it was something that you thought you would feel and you didn't. What did you experience? And what would you like to share? And you can pop that right in the chat. All right, so we have some coming in, which is so beautiful. When you mentioned we're going to let go of the life we thought we would have was hard. It is hard. It's not easy. But we're planting seeds of being open to what might be, what can be. And so I'm happy for you for just sitting with the hard. Yeah, you will have a recording. Those in Haven have unlimited access to this recording, and those who are not in the Haven membership, you can. I will do my best to send out the link for 7 days, which you could rewatch this. It was beautiful, freeing, and emotional. Yeah, all right. All this beautiful experience of hard and beautiful. I felt so much grief build up, then so much peace and grace. My true self came out of the garden. It was beautiful. Oh, that's amazing, Jenna. So cool. While I went in and out of anxiety, I felt the Lord's comfort. He reminded me it will be okay. And that's also a normal experience, right? Anxiety could be your default setting to protect you from grief. It was for me. I can definitely explain that. I would have anxiety amp up, and then I wouldn't be able to access the grief. And so I just saw anxiety as this part, this protector that's saying, hey, this feels a little scary. But let the anxiety be there. It's okay for it to be there. You're starting to build safety. And I promise you, as you start to connect with grief more, and start building safety with these emotions, the anxiety will realize that it doesn't need to protect you so fiercely anymore. Molly, so much digestive sounds and sighs throughout the session. Yay! So digestive sounds are part of that parasympathetic response, right? It's telling us that our brain's got this message that it can, we can come out of survival and into rest, digest, and repair. A peace in the garden and softer with grief. I feel lighter now. Let go of what I hoped would be and make room for what is. That was so powerful. Huge sobs. Oh, awesome. I love that, Angela. A bunch of wildflowers grew. I picked a forgot me not flower to keep with me. I think I used half a box of tissues. What a great release. Oh, that's so beautiful, Melissa. Thank you for sharing. I felt a baby coming up from the soil. Oh, is that my inner child? It does feel like that. Oh, I just give you this invitation to take time to actually connect with that part going forward if you can, if that feels right for you. Just kind of noticing that this really young part is showing up, and how can you like lovingly even holding this part, imagining yourself cradling this part and saying, I'm here. I see you now. I felt God washing me clean of my sin, shame, guilt, sobbing and feeling every moment as He washed me with His grace. Oh, that's so beautiful. I cried in Jesus' arms. It felt so good. I realized I don't feel supported at all in my grief. Those that love me are dealing with their own grief and couldn't be there for me as I needed. Yeah, I felt the same. And that's why spaces like this are really vital and important, is kind of, knowing, especially if your family is dealing with grief like mine was. I couldn't fall apart to my mom anymore because she was grieving in her own way. And so I did, reach out of my family unit for support. And that's really why I created this community. Awareness that more healing is necessary, and this is a beautiful way to continue the journey. When you said, I'm so proud of you at the end, that made me cry. My little child so desperately wants to feel seen. Oh, we can relate to that, Cheryl. I recognize I have done so much grief work already, but emotional release still come up when I look at my changed self in the water. A sense of recognition for all the healing done so far and the pain that accompanied that journey. Thank you. I'm so happy, Lori. Crying all the time. Yeah, that can be challenging, especially in early grief as well, or when we first start connecting to grief. And that's why I'm always bringing in supports like stability, grounding, orienting to our surroundings, to help move with that. I was then able to see the garden when we revisited. I was able to see the blue sky and garden. Beautiful. Receiving this grace at the foundation turned into gold. I felt was having a shower of golden mercy rain. Beautiful. This was my first time attending this class, lots of tears. I just joined Haven yesterday, looking forward to my journey with this team and the Lord. A huge bunch of sunflowers grew, Angela. That's what I saw as well, sunflowers. The realization, the role of protection and grief, how much I don't allow others in for support. Yep, many of us are at that place as well. I did not expect so many tears to flow today. So much came out that was bottled up. So thankful for you, Vanessa. I'm so glad you joined us. Lots and lots of tears. Toddler me planted seeds, and she was joined by different versions of me at various stages of life. There were at least 6 of me watching these sunflowers grow. Wow, so cool, Georgia. I could see my seeds blooming into beautiful white roses. Oh, I love that. So beautiful. So we had all different experiences from the same practice, which is what's really cool about this work, right? You just never know what you're going to feel, right? You never know what you're going to experience or what's going to kind of come up for you. So yeah, I think it's pretty amazing. So again, this is an opportunity for us to connect and have a Q&A. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what's coming up, because I know many of you have um, are already in my membership Haven, but I thought I would just talk a little bit about that, just a couple minutes. My membership Haven is, as you know, it's a membership to support you with nervous system regulation, to support this experience of chronic illness recovery, but also grief specifically. So it's split into 2 different sections. There's nervous system and grief processing. And it's really formulated and created in a way to help you move out of chronic survival and into safety. And that means safety with symptoms, safety with sensations, safety with emotions, and with grief. And especially for those of us who are doing trauma-related work, as I mentioned, grief is a vital portion of that, a vital piece of that. And so I find that processing grief helps us also do that work as well. So, as I said, we focus on mind and body, regulating a nervous system, bringing in grief. For those who also want to weave in their faith, we also have faith resources specific to nervous system and specific to grief, including faith sessions that are live. We have weekly group coaching calls to support you in your journey, and it's run by myself and my amazing mentors. They were all on here at one point. I can't see them all, but Lindsay and Pamela are here. Jessica and Hannah as well are my other 2 mentors, who are just, and all of them are amazing. And they all have their incredible, incredible testimonies of recovery, which I have been so honored to have like front row seats to and to witness. And yeah, so we have weekly coaching calls. I also hold this grief class monthly as well. And we are just in the process right now of moving to a custom app, which is amazing. So the experience of Haven is already so wonderful, but we're leveling up and bringing in just some really, really fun features that we didn't quite have, that I think are going to be a game changer. And we also have a private Facebook community, but the app is going to have a community built right into the app as well, including push notifications, so you can be reminded that this class is here. I know many of us don't look at our email, and yeah, you can star your favorites, create your own personal playlists. And Haven really it has these guided practices to help you rewire your brain, interrupt the chronic stress cycle, process grief and emotions. It helps you build safety with sensations. It really helps you change the entire experience of what you're going through, whether it's chronic illness, loss, trauma. And it's got so much in there. And if you want to know more, let me know. I'm going to be sending out an email at the end of this, probably later tonight or tomorrow, with the replay of the session. And you can learn a little bit more about the membership Haven that we're all a part of here, or most of us are. And if you have any questions, you can either come to myself or respond to that email. And yeah, that's. I'm not going to talk any more about it, but yeah, I hope that this session was kind of gave you a glimpse into part of what we offer within the Haven membership. And for those of you who are kind of curious, we hold our live coaching calls as well, and I am going to be opening up the coaching call in September to the community. So you'll be able to join for free and get a taste as to what my amazing team has to share, because we have a lot of shared wisdom together. And maybe you know someone who's been in Haven. These coaching calls are life changing. So join us. If you're on my email list or you signed up for this class, I will be sure to let you know when it opens for you to join our live class. And yeah, I can't wait for you to kind of see what we have in this space, what we offer here. So yeah, any questions? I would love to take questions or even comments. If you want to raise your hand, go for it and ask a question, or you can pop it in. I see there's a question already. It's hard for me to have any emotions come up. I only feel raging symptoms. It's just like a protection mechanism, and it takes time. The more I'm building capacity to be with symptoms, feel them in a neutral way, maybe emotions can come up more. Yes, you answered your own question, Cheryl. So yes, if we're running away from the symptoms, then of course we're likely not going to have the capacity to sit with the emotions. So as you're building safety with the symptoms, we do a lot of practices within Haven that help us build neutrality, curiosity, safety with symptoms and sensations in the body, including somatic tracking, ground, release, recover, noticing sensations, also building the capacity to sit with positive sensations. And so this does take time. So you are definitely not the only one experiencing this. This is very, very common. And I want you to know that today you planted seeds. So you definitely didn't do anything wrong. And I think you have so much beautiful awareness. And I would say keep going, trust the process, that as you build safety with the symptoms as well, that you'll start to get that permission and capacity to build safety with the emotions. Sometimes I'll tell my clients, can you just imagine what does grief feel like? And kind of start to get curious about that. I have practices within Haven that help you get to know different emotions in your body. So you may not even be familiar with them. So what you're describing as symptoms could also be an experience of an emotion. Your brain is just computing it as a symptom, you know, as something physical. So yeah, it's a journey of understanding and getting curious with it. But it sounds like you're doing a beautiful job. I felt the grief in my chest. I've had severe breathing issues. I read that you had something like that. Was nervous system work or grief work the key to healing symptoms? I don't talk a lot about symptoms here, but I will just say, yes, I did have a lot of breathing stuff. Was on uh, puffers. I had chronic bronchitis, asthma, all of that stuff. And it wasn't until I found this work, the mind body work, that started to resolve. And as I regulated my nervous system, it did resolve. And I have not had anything since. And I will say that after the loss of my father, which was, you know, kind of post recovery, I did notice the sensations in that area as well. So the lungs are very much connected to grief. And as I moved through some of that grief, it completely dissolved. So I hope that answers your question. Do you?
Amanda?
Yeah, of course.
Yes. I just want to make sure you don't miss something. Up, I think you passed it. Lisa asked a question, so I'm going to jump back and just read it to you.
Sure.
Grief can be so heavy. How do you navigate allowing it to show up in relationships?
Okay. So it is heavy. And so are you, I guess, asking, are you asking if you, how to allow it come up with when you're with someone? So from this perspective, not everybody is grief informed. Not everybody has the capacity to sit with us in our grief. And so we have to first accept that our partner or our friends or family may not have the capacity to be there for you in the way that you're wanting them to, but you can give them the chance. And so for me, it was a matter of really spelling it out for my husband, even for my family, and for for friends as well. Number one, you don't need to fix me. You don't need to make the emotion go away. You don't have to make it better, because you can't make it better, and that's just the reality of it. And letting them know how they can support me. So spelling that out, right? I just want you to sit with me. Can you just sit with me? Can you just place your hand on my back? Can you just rub my back? All I need to know is that you're here. Little keywords like I'm here, validating this is hard. Like I literally spelled it out for my husband. I see that you're sad, right? Like he would say stuff like, wow, you're really sad, like, and then he didn't have to do anything about it. And what was beautiful is that as he started to notice kind of that experience, he started to grow in his emotional capacity as well. So it depends. Not everybody has uh, the capacity for our grief, but we can start with that, gently kind of letting them know what you're needing, expressing that, and giving it permission to be there, right? Even in relationships like your family. So I don't know if that answered your question, but hopefully it did. So thank you for catching that, Pamela. Great. I have a wait list for one-to-one coaching, and it's very long. So I have amazing, amazing coaches within my membership that I have mentored, that I have worked with all of them, and they know what they're doing. Trust me when I say it. And they all come from experienced backgrounds as well, prior to even doing the nervous system work. So I refer them out to Pamela, Lindsay, Jessica, Hannah. They are amazing. And so within the Haven membership, you can also book with them. And the Haven membership really was created so that people who couldn't access coaching did have access to resources. So when you join, you do have weekly coaching sessions. You have a Facebook group that is very active, where all of us mentors are there to support as well as your fellow members. So it's bringing you a lot of support so that you can access, without coaching. If you need coaching, you can book, but we try to make it a really good experience. And the membership in general is created like having a coach in your pocket. So every practice is guided. They are the same practices I used with my own members, with my own clients. I've coached over 1,000 people at this point, one-on-one, and everything from Haven has come from that experience of my own experience working with them, my own experience doing the work as well. How often do you suggest we do a session like this? Depends where you're at in your healing journey. So if you're kind of new to grief and you're just opening up to it, I would say, maybe start with 1 day, 1 day a week where you can dedicate to the grief and make it like a session. When you would book a session with a therapist and you like stick to it, like at, Thursday at 4 o'clock, I'm going to go see my therapist. That's what I instruct my clients to do when it comes to grief as well. Is grief doesn't need all of your time and space, but it needs dedicated time and space. You might go through seasons where you're really feeling drawn to these resources more than anything, and you may do a lot more. I've had seasons where I've just kind of focused on the grief stuff mostly. And again, everything in Haven from a grief perspective is created with a sensitive nervous system in mind. It isn't just I'm never throwing you in there. I'm always supporting you in it. So something like that you might use more often during different times. But in the grief section of Haven, there's a little plan there, a PDF with everything that you need to know to get started. I'm grieving a husband and loss of kids. Hard, so sad to be around couples with kids. Should I avoid them or try to stay hanging out with them? Yeah. Okay. So that's a big trigger, right? And it makes sense. So first of all, don't judge it. Allow it to be there. I know when I lost my dad, and obviously it's not the same, I was getting angry and jealous of all of my friends hanging out with their dads and celebrating these big birthdays. And I didn't judge it. I knew that was just a part of my grief and that it would change over time. But Initially, if you are really early on in grief, give yourself the opportunity to create that space and say, it's okay if I don't go out with these people right now. Even communicating that to them can help. I know with my mom, she communicated to her sisters, it's really hard for me to go when you guys are on double dates. Can we do something just us? And they were glad to support her in that way. And then over time, through kind of incremental exposure, it did get easier. Obviously, the grief will never go away. It's not supposed to. It's a reflection of the love that you had. So the love is always there, but it will start to evolve. And it's okay for right now if you're feeling like you want some space from that, that's okay too. Okay. Which day of the week and at what time are the calls in the Haven membership? It all depends. We release the coaching call event schedule at the beginning of every month so that you have access to all of them. So it's typically, most of our classes are at 1 Eastern Standard Time, but some fluctuate. We may do a 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, depending on the call, usually midweek. Is being tired after crying and expressing grief more of an average response or more of an intolerance to the emotion? Curious how you would recognize when your body has found safety with grief or emotion versus still intolerance. Yeah, Elizabeth, you made it. Okay. Yes, grieving is exhausting. It is exhausting. And that's just the reality of it, especially when we're bringing up these heavy emotions. So give yourself the gift of rest after a big release, just like you would, I don't know, when you would go to do your, so you go to a therapy appointment, right? And you have like a big release, or, you go to, I don't know, your chiropractor or whatever it is. Even for a massage therapist, they're like, hey, take it easy the rest of the day, drink lots of water. So either way, you are definitely releasing, and it's a very, very normal response to feel tired after this. So don't judge that response. Know also that the releases may not be as big the more that you start going into the pool of grief and expressing that. So that will also evolve. As I move out of freeze and understand myself more, I'm noticing so much similarities to my mother, even symptom wise. She has a lot of grief and trauma and is chronically ill as well. Sometimes it scares me as I don't want to leave my life like this, and the progress is slow. Does it make a difference that I try to understand myself and give myself safety? Um, yeah, so I see this a lot where we take on some of these things that we've learned from our parents, and then they become a part of us in a sense, right? I know that I have a mom part that's literally like my mom within me, in that I see this a lot in my clients. It's like, she talks like her, she acts like her, she shows up like that. But it was very important for me to make sure I had this, and it's not a bad thing at all, right? I'm sure there's, wonderful qualities about your mom as well. But when we're learning downloading their survival response, that's kind of what we're talking about here. And so her story is not your story was one of the most important things I had to learn. Her story is not my story. She didn't have the resources, the knowledge, the understanding that I have now. So I'm not going to end up like that. So even repeating that to yourself, her story is not my story. And I can create that separation, that space to unblend with that. Because it feels like you get so blended up in that, like, her trauma is my trauma. And also, you can't do the work for her. You can't, it's not your responsibility to regulate her either, was really important for me as well to understand. And so just continuing to work with yourself when you notice that fear comes up, reminding yourself, this is her story, not my story. I have access to things she didn't have. And I'm going to continue to support myself in this way. So I hope that that's like helpful in kind of starting to get curious with that, recognizing that there's a blending of her story with yours, and starting to kind of unblend with that. I didn't cry easily prior to getting sick 5 months ago. I now weep every day. It can come out of nowhere, always comes when doing tapping or a lesson. Or should I just let it out when it comes? So this sounds like a dorsal state, right? So when we're in we have the polyvagal ladder, right? We have the different states of survival. When we're in that ventral vagal, we are engaged, connected, we feel good, we're present. When we are in a sympathetic state, right, we are more anxious, we might be in a fight, flight, like we're ready to kind of take action. And as we're moving kind of down that ladder, we can go into this dorsal, like we've exhausted all ways that we can get out of this situation. We are in pure survival, and now we're going to play dead. And that dorsal state is you might describe it as like a depressive state. You're depressed, you're crying all the time. That would say that that is different than grieving per se, because I would say that that is, if you pay attention to the stories that are kind of coming up as you're crying all day, it's very much based on more of a survival experience versus grief. Grief and survival are different, slightly different. So my invitation for you is, well, what if you were to do something targeted, really go to your grief, do a practice like this, and let that be enough. Grief doesn't need all of your time and attention. It just needs dedicated time and attention. You don't need to grieve all day. You don't need to cry all day. It would probably create some more, just unnecessary energy loss or unnecessary pressure on your system. So can we create the dedicated time and space, and outside of that time and space, do our best to connect to safety, do our best to connect to an elevated state? That is my invitation for you. Does Haven support the allowing method of listening, but then are you also catching thoughts and such? So allowing is built in throughout the membership. We don't have a specific practice of allowing because it's everywhere. That's just what Haven is. It's about building safety with what is. So you're going to find practices where you are building safety with emotions. You're allowing it to be there and you're supporting. You're going to find practices like somatic tracking and other body-based practices where you're allowing sensation to be there and getting curious. So we do not catch thoughts. Thoughts are a product of the state that you're in. You don't need to fix, change, or be obsessed with catching them and rewriting them and all of that stuff. We can be aware and recognize that they're reflecting that you're in a state of survival. And then we ask, how can we support this state? A part of me doesn't feel safe. Can we connect to that? And we also do some parts work in Haven as well. Thank you for this. The Lord has really made your and the coach's testimony life-saving for many. Oh, thank you, Becky. Bye, Georgia. I know Georgia had to leave. And how do you handle the day-to-day where fear comes up and we feel the trigger and also desire to have a gentle way to allow it, but not completely disrupt the moment? It's okay if it disrupts the moment. Emotions will do that. Fear will do that. It's okay if you get dysregulated or you come out of that state. So being able to build safety with how fear shows up in the body. We have a beautiful practice within the grief section called Move with Fear. And again, it's literally just building familiarity with fear, because what is it? It's just a part of you. It's just an expression. It's just a state. It's allowed to be as it is. It doesn't have to look a certain way. And so can we invite fear in when it comes, right? Let it be there. And maybe it's going to start with allowing it with little bits at a time. Maybe you're going to say, I'm going to sit with your fear for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. And then I'm going to connect to safety again. So a flexible nervous system is what we're looking for to be able to move through different states. Just because we connect to fear doesn't mean we get stuck there, but we also build the capacity to sit with fear. So don't beat yourself up if you're like, oh, I felt it for a bit and it felt like too much. You felt it. Make the invitation to allow it first and then support your way through it. How do you prevent being stuck an emotion when you fully allow them? I allowed myself to feel the grief of the only person supporting me emotionally, stopping to do that, but then I went into a 3-week full-blown depression. It was really hard to dig myself out of it. I've always been good at feeling my emotions, but they take over completely. So this sounds, again, you describe a a depression, which may be a dorsal state like we described earlier, where you are going into kind of that complete shutdown because you feel really defeated. Maybe there's a part of you that, again, went into this story of this person, no longer existing or no longer being here, and then that put you into a fear response. I wouldn't say it's the emotion per se that's keeping you stuck, but it all depends on kind of how you sat with it. I know if you, for some people, when they force an emotion or they go into this really, big kind of, those like retreats and stuff where people are all lying down and some guy comes out and he's like, feel the emotion, and they're like, ah, and like everyone's like freaking out and feeling all that emotion. Sometimes that can be too much for a nervous system, and so then they can go into a dorsal state or a sympathetic state. So again, I don't know how specifically you've felt the emotion, but bringing it back to just kind of the way that I do things, when I had to build safety with emotion. I did not have the capacity to sit with grief, especially after the traumatic loss of my father. Even though I had regulated my nervous system, I had never fully gone into grief in that way before. It was a whole new ball game, and so I incrementally started to work with that emotion, grief specifically. And maybe there are other emotions that come easier to you, right? And some that don't. But for myself, feeling that grief and that realization that he he was my safety, and he was, in a sense, he felt like he was my safety and he was no longer here, that felt scary for me. And so I did shut down during times of grief. And so yeah, and so this could be uh, grief, again, not necessarily stuckness, but being in a dorsal state, and how can you support that state, and how can you connect to emotion in a way that feels supportive so that you don't go into that state, is my invitation for you. I live with my mom and have to heal here while living with her, so can easily blend with her. She's not choosing healing. I try to control her and give her advice. It's a waste to do that. She's on her path, even if it's destructive. The less she can do around the house, the more I have to pick up as far as housework. So I want her health to be better, so I don't have pressure because I deal with chronic illness and feel like my mom uses me to help her. That's a really challenging situation to be in. So I don't know if it's just you and your mom at home. Are there any other ways to receive supports? I think boundaries are incredibly important for situations like this. Knowing that you can be frustrated with your mom and angry with her while also caring for her, and just allowing all of those states to be there. It doesn't have to be one or the other. More importantly than not is focusing on your own work. You are going to be a walking testimony to this work. What I found is that as I did the work, the people around me got curious, and then they kind of jumped on board. The more I tried to tell them of like, you should do this or you should do that, the more resistance. So I just stopped. I said, your regulation is not my responsibility. Your emotional intelligence is not my responsibility. Your healing is not my responsibility, but I can place boundaries. I can communicate, you can communicate with your mom, right? Like, these are, maybe even make a chart of certain things that she's responsible for or whatever it might be, but focus on your own healing. That is paramount. That is you cultivating safety. That safety can pour onto others. So instead of chronically dysregulating each other, what if you come into a more regulated state, connect to safety, and see how that pours into her without pressure, without expectation, maybe even grieving the fact that she doesn't want to do the work. All right. And I can accept that. And this is the way that it is right now. But I'm going to focus on myself, and things will be different. I feel very heavy after this, not tired. Is that normal? Feels a bit like shifting to dorsal, although it was wonderful. Yeah, as I described earlier, it could just be again, we dealt with some big emotions today. So what if you gave yourself the opportunity to rest and let go of the story that you're going into dorsal? There's that expectation of I did too much, I'm going to go into dorsal when that doesn't need to be the case. And we want to make sure that we're not attaching stories to our experiences. We can go into a more dorsal state for only minutes, for a couple hours, right? Your state can shift. And so if you're attaching this expectation, if I'm going into dorsal, now I'm going to be here for 3 to 6 weeks, that's your experience, right? I know because I've done it before. If you're saying, oh, that's interesting, I'm moving into more of a dorsal state. Is it dorsal, or is it just feeling tired and wanting to take a nap and being okay with it? So don't fight what you're feeling, is my point, and let go of the story that you're attaching to it, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Thanks, Jean. Thank you so much for this wonderful group practice and the generosity of your time. Yes, so we're going to call it. That's the end of our session. Thank you so much for all of those who joined, for those who are watching live, watching recorded. If you have any questions about Haven or this amazing group that we have, let me know. Please just reach out if you have any questions at all. And we're holding a live group coaching call that I'm opening up, a nervous system coaching call in September. If you want to know more about that, make sure you're on my email list. Star my email as a favorite because it gets lost in all the where to go, the promotions. And and I hope to see you in our next coaching call in September, and you can meet all of our amazing mentors. So if you'd like to unmute yourself and say goodbye, you're more than welcome to. It was an absolute pleasure to have you all here today.
Recording stopped.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Vanessa.